Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Skits Fun House. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And my honored guest today for this grand show is the one, the only Art Thibert. How are you doing, Art Thibert?
Doing good, Michael. Doing good. All we need is a bouncy house, you know?
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's like, when I do my show here, I like to stand up. I'm a person that doesn't like to sit for too long. So I just like to stand and just walk around a little bit. So I'm engaged. I'm like kind of doing it. So for me, it's like I got to be kind of, when I'm doing a lot of these shows, we're sitting down and we're just talking to people and stuff like that. And I'll be on there, me and my wife are doing our thing and I'm just like fidgety. I touch everything, and she keeps holding my hand so I don't get fidgety and stuff like that. And I'm just like, man, it's like if I could be standing, this would be great. So that's exactly what I do. I come in here and I just stand and say hello. Now, you are in California. You're in quarantine. You are sheltering in place. What day is it for you of this sheltering in place, and how many more days do you have?
It's all a blur to me because the joke is I've always been in quarantine my whole career. So, the studio is my quarantine. It's my womb. I think we're going on 2 months now. The thing is, like California, I think is going stir crazy. So Gavin Newsom, I call him Gavin Newsom, Nuisance. He's our governor. He keeps threatening to keep this thing going longer, like keeping everybody on lockdown. But I think there's going to be a rebellion. We already had a big rebellion in Huntington Beach where people were gathered and saying they want to get back to their lives and they want to get back out to hanging out with each other. So I'm hoping that it will be lifted soon. That's my hopes, because I do believe there's going to be a backlash soon where people are just going to do what they're going to do regardless of, what the governor says.
Well, that's crazy. That's just I don't know what's going on. I'm just like you. I'm sheltering in place. I work from home. We work from home. We are always like that, but we don't really get to go out to restaurants too much these days, for about the past month. But this past weekend, we're starting to loosen everything up in our state. And we actually went out and got something to eat. We went to our favorite Asian cuisine. We got us some pho, Vietnamese pho. And it was fantastic. And before we get into too much more here, let's just say hello to the chat. Oh, yes. May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. So let's just see who we got in here. We got Burst Films. We got Black Star dropping the links for us. Oni64. See what they got. Boom. That's right. That's how we bring it. Boom. Rock 10 Glory. Hello. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. Look at this. Look at this. Bounce House would be a great addition. See, Black Star loves it. I saw a bounce house when I was living in Arizona. We had one of those, they call them haboobs. I just called it a sandstorm. That thing, the bounce house just went flying. It was pretty funny. I hopefully it didn't hurt anybody, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah,
we got Mo Biggs in the chat. Yeah, you got to watch those things, don't you? All right. Yep. Oh, yep. See? Yep, there it is. May the 4th be with you. We got El Gargoyle. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. I mean, this is just fantastic. We love having everybody here. So let's just get into, let's tell everybody about your campaigns before we get into the talk right now. We got first thing up on the Indiegogo is Chrono Mechanics. Tell us about it.
Well, they do more before the dawn of time than most people do all day. So Chrono Mechanics is a creator IP that I've had for a while now, since early 2000s. And so we're dusting they're just brushing the dust off it and getting back into it and telling this new tale on Indiegogo. So it's been going since, I think, November. So we're in demand right now, and it's going strong. And yeah, go check it out. Everybody go check it out. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through stuff. I'm trying to find something here and I can't find it.
Well,
Oh,
I gotta tell you, the chrono mechanics just seems really, really interesting. I really like this one, and the way you've drawn it is a little different from what I'm used to seeing from you. So I always like that. I mean, myself, I'm always trying new things. So whenever I see someone trying something new, doing something new, but also doing something they love, I mean, this just seems like a no-brainer right here. We backed this one really early on, so we're super excited to get it.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's about Team 9.2 of Sector 7. They're four repairmen. They're time repairmen, and so in this is a pretty hilarious, over the top comedy, action adventure sci-fi story. And so time in this concept is literally a big machine, a nuts and bolts clockwork cosmic machine. And so since it's ancient, it breaks down a lot. And there's a company called Chrono Incorporated that are entrusted in repairing the big machine. So they hire repairmen, which is like the chrono mechanics, and they each have their own sectors, and they go in there and they repair the various pieces of the machine that need to be repaired when they break down. So they maintain it. Sometimes they'll just go in there and check it out, like a routine maintenance check. And that's kind of how this story starts out. It's a routine maintenance check, but then it just escalates into, a fever pitch of one misadventure after another. So yeah, and this story is also about a new mechanic that's being brought into the fold, and his name is Doug, and he's a latter 20th century rock god from the 70s. So I guess the fun thing is we're gonna try to figure out how he fits in to this team of very focused, take care of business kind of characters, with this kind of slacker, 20th century slacker fitting in, or will he fit in? We don't know. We don't know.
Well, all I got to say to people is go over there to Indiegogo. We got the links in the chat. We also got the links in the description. Go over there and check it out. This looks really exciting to me, and we just looking forward to getting it. That's all there is to it. Now, what you got coming up here is your Black and White Volume 1 Second Chance. You also got this you got your email list out there. It's coming soon, so tell people about that.
Yeah, if you sign up now, go to the page. It's probably in the description somewhere, I'm hoping. You'll click that, go over, give us your email information. We promise not to spam, and we will alert you when the campaign goes live. So we're going to have an early bird special or two, and those things sell out quickly. So you'll get the first, you'll get in early, so you'll make sure you'll get those. And also, if you sign up, you'll be eligible for a free trading card. So if you back a tier, any tier, you'll get a Zach Bradley Black and White 25th anniversary commemorative trading card.
Nice. Okay, and we also want to tell everybody also that you still got your Vampirella cover out there if they want to go and get that, which I thought was fantastic. This is more of the style that I'm used to you doing right here. Also, obviously, the Black and White Volume 1. So
yeah, this one has already been funded, so this has been closed. So if you missed out,
it's already gone.
Yeah, I don't know how you can get it, but maybe if you sweet talk those people over at Dynamite, they'll hook you up.
All right. Well, those are the things that Art's got going on. And of course, right now we got the Skits, the Sun, Book 1 on Indiegogo. We showed you the video at the very start. Also, just go over there and sign up for the email list. Day 1, we got discounts for you. We got a special, we got this combo thing that's going to be just for you, where you get a couple of books. They'll be wrapped up in a belly band. They're going to be signed and numbered with special art, handmade, wrapped around your books. It's something that no one else is doing. It's going to be fantastic to just get on out there and get it. Get on that mailing list, and you're just get on it. You'll be fine.
Get on it. So, yeah. Hey, your book looks interesting.
Right.
I did check out your punch. And those images, can you show them off? Look at that. Holy shit.
Yeah. We came on your show. I came on your show pretty early on when I was starting to do all the rounds and stuff like that, and showing some stuff. And I think I've gotten some new stuff in here since then. So this is the team. This is the lineup. We got MC on the left, and going over from there, you got Skits. You got Hattie Mae, Sam, and Josephine. That's the team. Everyone loves a team up. That's the characters right there. So yeah, this is just going to be great. We got all sorts of stuff, and those are all to scale too. People always ask, "Is that how big he is?" It's like, yes, that's how big he is, and he does big guy things. And I'll just kind of show you some of the stuff. I don't think you've like, here's some more concept art I was showing out right there. That's really nice. Let's see here. I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, here we go.
That one's new.
Yeah, and then we also got this one right here. This is a double page spread that I did right here. This one's going to be really, really nice. I just got done coloring it about a week ago, and it's fantastic. So really excited about that one. But anyway, enough of skits. What we need to get into is talking to you, man. That's really what I'm interested in. I want to pick your brain here.
Let's do some brain.
So as we were talking. Yeah, as we were talking before, like before the show even started up, I was listening to your stream, and you were just going off on all sorts of craziness that you did when you were a youngin', and I was just like, holy cow, this is just awesome. It's just like this guy's lived through some stuff, But what I'm really interested in is, what came first for you, comic books or artwork?
It's weird because I look back, and I'm sure most creatives have the same story. I was fully formed by the age of 7. You know what I mean? All my
Wow.
all my likes, all my tastes, everything was already there. So early on, it was cartoons. I loved the Hanna-Barbera Saturday morning stuff. I loved all the Disney animation. I loved the Disney parks. I loved superheroes, because I grew up in the 60s. So there was the Batman TV series. There was the Green Hornet TV series. There was the Lone Ranger. There was a lot of this stuff. And then comic books, I think I was about 5 when I got my first Batman comic. I couldn't even read it. And I got that. So and those are all things that I'm still doing. Those are all things I still like. Batman is my favorite, all-time superhero character. I love the Green Hornet. I may be doing a Green Hornet black and white crossover for Dynamite as well. We're working on that.
Whoa,
yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be so awesome.
I'm not sure how it will sell, because sexy, vampire chicks sell better. But I think I'll be doing this mostly for myself, just as a fan thing. Because to get my characters with a legendary IP like that, something I knew and loved as a kid, I cannot pass that up. So most likely that will happen. And then when I got a little older, like when I was young, the Beatles, the 60s, the Beatles thing. So I was still a little young, but my sisters were into it. So pop music and rock music was kind of always there as well. So when I got older, when I got about 12, 13, we're now in the 70s, rock music played a big, big role as well. So I wanted to play music. So I started playing the drums. And so basically, though, all those things is what still is in my DNA. It's comic books, it's cartoons, it's superheroes, and rock music. You know what I mean?
Well, for me, I've really had to sit back and think about this. It's something that I'm always like, well, what came, because when I was a kid, there was the Spider-Man TV show in the late 70s, and I mean, I always thought Spider-Man was awesome. I got pictures of myself at like 3, 4 years old with Spider-Man. They had someone dressed up like Spider-Man at the local mall, and you go get your picture taken with them. And I got Spider-Man shirt, Spider-Man shoe. I always really loved Spider-Man, but we never really, had the comics or anything around the house, but I always knew it was there. But one thing that I did do when I was younger, because we didn't have a lot of money, but I was always building things with my hands. Like I was always making sculptures out of like wood and bark and mud, and making these elaborate, like, just castles and different stuff like that. And I figured that I thought comics and art kind of came at the same time, but in actuality, it was art when I started to think about it, because I went back and I started looking at my life, where I was like, well, I was always building stuff. My dad was a carpenter, so we always had like a lot of wood laying around the house and stuff like that. So I was always building things with wood blocks and stuff like that. So I always really loved that sort of thing. But somewhere around like sixth grade, I had an art teacher that said, hey, you need to sit down and draw this. And I found out that I really loved drawing. And they were like, they'd had me draw like still life or something. And I liked the drawing, but I didn't like still life. I mean, who does,
Right.
So, so she was like, well, what do you want to draw? And I was like, well, I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, So that had just come out. And so I started drawing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, So for me, art came first, and then the pop culture type stuff started coming in and whatnot. And so yeah, so for me it was definitely art first, and then rolled it into comics and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Well, just to back up, I was drawing always, you know what I mean? Like since I was a little kid. So I would draw the Hanna-Barbera characters or the Disney characters or my favorite superheroes. And then when I got a little older, me and a friend, we would draw up our own little, superhero adventure comics. And I didn't know that they were drawn 11 by 17. So I drew them the actual size of the comic books.
Yeah.
Even to the point of putting the dots, like that's how you color them. Like I didn't know, any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, we made our own comic books, entertained ourselves, our friends. We'd go to the there was a liquor store that had, it wasn't quite a Xerox machine. I don't know what the hell they called those early. They were like mimeograph. They smelled like of chemicals, and it wasn't quite black. What's that?
You mean like the Dittos?
Yeah, maybe they were like Dittos, but I think it was probably before like Xerox, but it worked like a Xerox machine. So we'd go there, pay our dime or whatever, and we'd make our copies. So we would make comic books and we would give them to our friends, just to entertain them.
Right.
And we had this thing called the Superhero Club where we had a tree house, and we would go and we'd write and draw our comic books and stuff like that. But the weirdest thing is, I don't know about you, Michael, but I never, ever thought people made a living at this. You know what I mean? I knew people did it, but I didn't know that you could make a living at it. And I didn't know that I could do it. Like there was a serious disconnect all the way until my adult life, that I never, ever thought like I would do this, because I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know that people actually did this thing for some reason. I don't know what I was thinking, like if it was magic or something like that. Like some people talk about, oh, when I read comic books, I was into this guy, this artist, or this writer. And when I was a kid, I didn't distinguish. It was just a comic book. You know what I mean? Like I didn't follow artists. I just followed characters I liked and stories that I liked and things like that. So for some reason, I had this kind of disconnect between like that people actually did this, for a living, and just the comic books and cartoons and things that I had. And then once, I think it was, Walt Disney, I'm an older guy. So he had these shows like Wonderful World of Disney, and he'd show behind the scenes stuff. And he'd go, this is Milt Kahl. This is, all these great Disney animators. And I'm like, holy shit, there are people that do this stuff.
Yeah.
And when I got older, then I started realizing that, adults do these things and they get paid to do them. And so I think even when I got older, though, there was still this disconnect. So when I got into my teens, I went more music. It seemed more tangible to me, right? Like, because I could go to a club, I could see bands, I could talk to the club owner, I could get in there,
Yep.
I could meet with my friends, and we could put a band together. It seemed more tangible. So then I kind of moved away from comics and art, even though I still drew, but I mostly would draw flyers for bands and like logos for bands and things like that. And so then I went more into music and cars and girls and stuff like that. in my teen years. And then I had an eye-opening experience where it was the year I graduated. I was devastated in an accident. I was hit by a motorcycle on a mountain trail up in, God, where was it? San Gabriel Mountains here. And so I had a punctured lung. I had a concussion. My teeth were bashed out. My leg was shattered. It was literally shattered. It was in like two pieces. And so I spent a lot of time in the hospital. And then once I recovered from that, they found that I had scoliosis. And it wasn't, some people think it's just an S curve, but this was a corkscrew. So they said in a few years, if I didn't get the surgery, I would die because it would pancake my internals, my organs. Wow. So I wouldn't be able to, my lungs and my heart wouldn't be able to function because it would just kind of squeeze it in. And it's like the trash compactor in Star Wars. So then I started thinking, everybody was telling me, you're not going to be able to just be like a physical worker. Like I was just thinking I was going to be a manual laborer like my dad or, whatever the hell it was. Like I didn't really have too much expectations of what I was going to do. But now my destiny was kind of set. I couldn't do physical labor anymore. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't do it. Physically, I couldn't lift over 30 pounds and a lot of other stuff. So then while I was in the hospital, I was reading a lot of comic books. Like friends would bring in stuff, because you would be bored. You're like, I'm in traction in the hospital and all this stuff. And I can't move and I can't get up. Kind of like what, this pandemic is for some people. So I read a lot of comic books and I had a sketch pad. So I just started drawing and reading comic books. So then I rediscovered comic books, but more adult comics, like the Pacific comic stuff, like Rocketeer and all the Savage Sword stuff by John Buscema. So more adult comics, more so than the superhero stuff. And then like heavy metal and the more like artistic stuff, like the magazine size Marvel stuff where they would paint it and, Judge Dredd and all that stuff. So I really got into it. And then, what was it? I started going to school. I just started going to like junior colleges, whatever I could afford to go to, while I was still working full time, once I recovered from all the surgeries. And I met a teacher and it was an illustration class. I was working as an illustrator too, while I was going to school. So I did illustration up in LA for a couple of years. What were you going to say?
Well, so let's back it up. So you started out with drawing your own thing a little bit. Yeah, let's back it up. Boop, boop, boop. So you started out with just kind of drawing for yourself and everything. Now, you went through schooling. Did you ever have any good schooling? Like junior high, elementary, high school? Did you take art classes or anything? Was that available?
Not really. Like arts, like Southern California, like LA County, have some of the worst school systems in the nation. And so they had a Proposition 13, believe it or not, Michael, they actually cut all the arts programs in school, all of them. The only thing that stayed was the marching band, was the band, because they had to perform at the football games, right? And that generated money. So, you got to keep that going. So pretty much, all those things went away. So even if they were there, I don't think it would have interested me. It's kind of like when you said you were drawing and they're like, draw this bowl of fruit. Like it still wouldn't have interested me. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to draw big guys, going on action adventures and stuff like that. That's where my interests were. And so when I was in college, even my life drawing classes and stuff, the teachers would always say, you draw everything heightened. Like you're drawing a perfect version of that overweight lady that's posing. You know what I mean? Like you're drawing like these perfect versions of these people. And they're saying like, you do this great heightened stuff like illustration and stuff like that. And so then, you start talking about possibly what you want to do. And so they said that's the sign of a good illustrator, where they can take, like illustration of old, like I'm talking about 40 years ago or whatever, where illustration was still a viable art form before Photoshop and things like that. And so then he said, what interests you? And I told him, I said, Frank Frazetta. I said, Marvel Comics, stuff like that. And so he said, I have a friend that works for Neil Adams, Continuity Comic Books, and I'll get you in touch with him.
Wow.
And it was Brian Murray. So I met Brian. Brian was doing comic books, and I got to hang out with him in the studio. And then he turned me on to Jim Valentino, who was one of the founders of Image Comics. And so I started, I just wanted to make a living. I was out on my own early on. So I went in any direction that paid me. You know what I mean? If it was illustration, I worked there. If it was playing a nightclub, playing drums, I went there. If it was doing a comic book, I went there. I just needed to pay the rent. So Jim was looking for an assistant at first on what was it called? Normal Man, and then Myth Adventures. And so then I worked my way up to full inking Jim. And so it was pretty steady work, and it was paying the bills. And I met Rob Liefeld through that too. So there was this whole Orange County connection. There was Brian Murray, Jim Valentino, Rob Liefeld, and myself. So Jim and Brian were already working professional, but Rob and I were not. So I started working with Jim, and then Rob would just kind of hang out in Jim's, studio as well. And so then just one thing led to another, and comic books started paying the rent. So I went in that direction.
So you had a spot there where you were learning art and you didn't really have any traditional training, but then you ended up like starting to work for these guys and stuff like that and doing junior college. I mean, what was the time like in between there though? I mean, were you just sitting around at the house drawing as much as you can? Were you naturally able to draw? Or did you find that you had to really work at it and take time and develop those things? Like, for myself, I guess I was just blessed because in 6th grade, I had this teacher who was like, hey, you need to draw this. And then she got me interested in that. And then when I went to junior high, I was like, okay, well, I want to take an art class. That seems really interesting. And I had a really good teacher there that taught the classics, gesture drawing, poses, all of that sort of stuff. And I was interested in it because I wanted to draw like superheroes and stuff like that. So we were learning how to draw the human form. And he was interested in that sort of stuff too. And then when I went to high school, I had a great teacher there who was a fine artist who just happened to start teaching at the local high school. And I had a lot of really good influences that put me in that direction. I mean, how did you stay motivated to just kind of sit there and always draw? Because once I started, I never stopped. I mean, that's how it was for me. I mean, I played sports, I did all these things, but once I found art, that's all I had. And I did it every day, and I wasn't never good. I got good by just doing it every day, drawing. People always like, oh, you're talented. It's like, no, I'm not. It's like, it took a long time to get where I'm at, So I'm guessing it was the same for you. It's like you just were interested and you just drew on your own. Like you just got you a notebook or whatever and was just practicing all the time.
Yeah,
right?
that was pretty much it. And so like in school, I'm sure it was like that for you as well. You were the guy that could draw things. So then people would go, hey, draw this image from my lunchbox, or like draw this or draw that. So you would be that guy that you were kind of the freak show, the schoolyard, so when you're at lunch break, you're like, oh, okay, I'll draw this for you. Here you go. So there was already kind of, like things were going in that direction. But I think for me, where I grew up and how I grew up, it never seemed like these things were even an option, like to pursue in any kind of real tangible way. So it's just something I did to entertain myself. And I feel kind of like you where I think I had a basic desire to do it, but not necessarily was I born with like natural ability, because I know you've been around people like this, and I have too. When people go, I have a natural ability, there's natural ability, and then there's natural ability. Like there's Travis Charest, or there's like guys that I've seen that can just they can draw from a nostril on a face, and they can draw the whole figure out from that. They don't have to, structurally gesture it in or anything like that. Like these guys, almost like Mozart, where they have the whole image already in their head, and they don't even really have to fudge with things and move stuff around. But I think I've always been that guy that, like, what I was given, like if I was given a gift, it was I was given tenacity and just the desire to do it, but not necessarily, some people would argue, but not necessarily skills. I think the skills came out of the desire to do it, and like you said, doing it over and over and over again,
Black Star has a question. Did Art have that spiral notebook they always show in movies with pages of school art?
Hey, if you indulge me, I'll get one of my school sketchbooks for you. It's right over here.
Oh yeah, do it, man. Do it, man. I love to see sketchbooks. So Art's going to go look for a sketchbook right quick so he can show us that. We'll keep that question up on there from Black Star. That's really cool. I love sketchbooks. Just for y'all while we're waiting here, I got piles of sketchbooks. That's just something that has always interested me. I like books in general. Books are just fantastic. I like having them around me. I like to be surrounded by them. And here's Art back. We're going to see the sketchbook. We're going to see the notebook from high school. Look at there. Nice.
So I think this is, let me see. These things are all beat to crap. So these are more like early college. So I used to, in my sketchbook, I have, I don't know if you can read some of these. Like when I travel around and things, I got like rock stars and different people to sign my sketchbook. So this big one says, "To Art, keep rockin'," and it's Carmine Appice, and he was the drummer for Dio in the day. And I got Mike Grill here. I got Dave Stevens. Holy crap! Look at this right here.
Dave Stevens, man. Here. There you go.
Right here.
Nice.
Yeah, so let me get, so this is some of the drawings. So
nice.
I was probably around, I don't know, 18, 19.
Wow, that's really nice. Really nice.
I always heard, these are just the studies you do, that hands and faces. So most of my sketchbooks are like, this is just like just a ton of hand drawings. Let me see if I can find some of the good stuff. And then you do like 2-minute studies, and you do quicker studies. So these are like probably 2-minute studies and stuff. That one is a little profane. And so then there's faces. So then you do faces in your sketchbook.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you can see
your sketchbook.
This
one,
sketchbooks
look a lot nicer than mine, man. That's great.
So I was already playing with like the T-bear thing where I had like a bear there.
Oh yeah, look at there. Someone says you need to turn that into a campaign. Turn your sketchbooks into a campaign.
So I was mostly like illustrations. So in the early days, it's kind of less comic book. I got some Bridgman. You always like mimic your oh man, there's pages and pages of Bridgman here. And then there's more hand studies. Some of this is pretty boring stuff. I'm getting into more figure stuff here. There's feet. So like sketchbooks aren't always the most interesting unless they're concept. I do have some of those too. Let me see here.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some stuff here. So I was kind of getting more into like just ink drawings.
Nice. Yeah.
So once again, like I said, this is like a 17-year-old. This is 1986, I think it said. There's Princess Leia.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like the style of illustration that was going on at that time period. You know, you can really tell the time period from your illustrations.
All these pin
Oh yeah.
drawings also, there was no understructure, so it's just, it's just looking at the model and drawing.
Well, you know, this is something that I wanted to talk to you about actually, Art. So that's funny that you should bring that up. So when you do your drawings and stuff and then you ink over it, now myself, that's awesome. Now, now I can't do like a fully rendered pencil drawing and then actually ink over it. Now, is that something that you do fully rendered and then ink over it, or do you just straight up ink with your professional work? Oh.
This stuff is just inked. Like there's no underdrawing on it.
Well, I'm talking about like with your professional work today. I mean, how do you do your ink in there? I mean, because that's really what you're known for in the industry is your inking.
Yeah. Let me. So yeah. I just like here. I'm working on this, and I'll ink this. So this is for the black and white, volume 2.
Just
It's a little light,
yep.
but yeah. So I'll draw it in pencil, and then I'll ink it over with like, so I just use Pelican, and then a dip in or a brush.
Yeah, that's something that I was never able to do was the those pens, man, them quills. I got an aggressive style, and I just dig into the paper with them. I mean, I'm just a mess, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome, nice. But brushes, I'm a huge fan of brushes. I love doing my inking with brushes, and I can't stand to render something and then ink over it. It's either ink or it's pencil. You know, it's like
really?
I just throw down some quick lines with pencils, you know, and then I'll just go right over it with ink and do everything in ink. I don't. I feel like it's killing the energy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those are nice little mix and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, keep going. Yeah, I can see that you wouldn't want to like go over your pencils because you want to keep those intact.
Yeah.
But now you blue line stuff, so you could kind of ink over the pencils if you just blue line it, right?
Well, see, that's another thing. Like, like I was telling you, it's like when I went into 7th grade, I was taught a classical background, you know, so I didn't actually learn like the blue line and stuff like that. I was taught to be like gestural and to enjoy yourself and to be in the moment, you know, and stuff like that. So I look at, oh man, those are fantastic. So I actually I look at every piece as like a piece of art. You know what I mean? That needs to be hung up. So I don't like blue lines. I can't stand blue lines, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's like I just roll right into it. There you go. Oh yeah, big time.
Oh wait, hold on. This will be funny. This is some of my early business cards.
Nice. Nice. Wait a minute, you don't have your address or anything or a phone number. You can't.
Oh no, that's like 35 years ago. Yeah.
So someone will get that number and call it, and then it'll be like someone's house. I'll be like, "Why are you calling me? Oh, I'm looking for art. Art. We ain't seen an art gallery."
I think they demoed that building. These are early. I did a series for DC called Time Masters. So these are some advertisement ideas that I doodled up. Yeah, we should have done a show just on sketchbooks.
Oh, we could do that again sometime. I'll pull mine out, man. I got a stack like this high of sketchbooks, man.
Somebody said I was Keith Richards of Comicsgate. So
it kind of looks like Leatherface in a way, like a skinny Leatherface, you know, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. You could tell what decade this was from. Holy crap.
That's awesome.
Trying some marker stuff out. Yeah. Here's a Batman.
Nice. Look at that.
You're getting exclusives.
Have you ever showed these online?
No.
Oh man, you need to show this stuff, Art. It's fun. It shows where you came from, you know. That's really what I like to do on this show, is just talk about that sort of stuff, where you came from. Look at there. What's that colored with, Art?
It's markers and Prismacolor pencils and stuff.
Okay.
So you can tell it's from the 80s, early 90s. Uh-oh. Somebody said I like the ladies, so yeah.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. There you go. Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff in here. Just fun stuff. Here's an old Batman from before I broke into business.
Oh yeah.
This will give you some idea of the level I was at before I broke into the business. So yeah, that was a nice detour.
So we got
Thanks for letting me do that.
That was awesome, man. I'll tell you what, we'll do another show sometime, and we'll do just sketchbooks and stuff like that. Maybe we'll do the next one on your show, and I'll bring piles of sketchbooks. We can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We got a question. We got a question here. Verse Films. Aside from Vampirella, have you done any horror comics?
Most recently, New 52, Aaron Lopresti and I did it was kind of more of a horror take, like pure horror take on Solomon Grundy. So
okay. Yeah.
I think that's probably the most horror I've ever got into. For some reason, before I broke into business, there was a lot of horror comics, but once I started, it was mostly superhero stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I never really got a chance to do any of that.
A little bit earlier, you were talking about some of your influence, how you were getting into like the Marvel magazines and the John Buscema type stuff. Well, I mean, the thing that I really got into was like the creepy, eerie Vampirella, the old ones, the Warren magazines.
The magazines, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I quickly got into that stuff because I liked, I was going kind of that classical background. So I liked like the Frazetta, the Jeff Jones, Bernie Wrightson, Michael Kaluta. I was liking all those old fantasy artists. They for me, that was like, they were like gods for me. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, Barry Windsor Smith, got to throw him in there too.
Barry Windsor Smith. I mean, everyone from the studio, I mean, the studio was fantastic. I looked for that book when I was younger forever. I never could find one. And then when the internet came around and eBay, I found them left and right. I got like 4 or 5 of them here now, just because when I see one, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never get that as a kid, and I just buy them up. So
yeah, I still don't have one, but I was like you, where I was like this. It almost seemed like it wasn't real, right? This studio, like this New York loft apartment where all these great people worked out of, and you're just like, no, that never happened, And then there's this book, and it's like, yeah, well, if it happened, I'd have that book, but you couldn't get that book anywhere. Just like you remember the famous artist books, the at-home famous artist book.
I got them right over here. I have them too. Yeah, there's like what is there, like 7 or 8 of them or something?
They're in binders, right?
The big bindles. Yeah, yep. They're in multicolor too. They're like green, orange, yellow, and all that.
Gray, red.
Yeah, man. I mean, those things are fantastic. I mean, forever. Like you said. I mean, it was like a myth. People kept talking about them, but you never saw them. You never saw them. The studio book, I saw one. The people that I got into, and when I was in my teenage years, I actually worked at a comic book shop, and he had one. That was the only one I had ever saw. He was like, yeah, they don't exist. But then when the internet came about, it was like they were all over the place. You can buy them all the time now. So
I got some great studio stories from like Howard Chaykin and Walter Simonson, because there was kind of like, there was a changing of the guard at the studio, but they weren't like the A-list. You know what I mean? There was like the A-list, and then there were the guys that came later. But there was a tradition, and Walter and Howard kind of came into that studio as well. Most people don't
I
know
didn't
that.
even know that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it. It whenever it comes to any of that stuff back then, there was a group of people. The guy who ran the comic book shop that I went to, he was from New York, so he knew about all that stuff, because that's what he grew up in. He said he actually went to the studio a couple times. You could actually just go right up to it, knock on the door, and they'd let you in, and you could see them. But there were people back then that would talk about it and know about it, but I think the younger generations, unless people like us actually talk to them about it, they don't really know. It's like I talk to younger kids or even people my own age, and they don't know anything about it. They don't even know most of these people existed. They might have heard of Frazetta, Barney Wrightson, but not too many. Jeff Jones, he was my personal favorite. And I actually got to spend a day with him painting when I was a freshman in college. And to this day, that's one of the best experiences of my life is,
Wow.
just having that opportunity. Yeah, he came. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and they would have artists come in and teach for a day. And the sequential art department would always bring in comic book people. And, that year they brought in Jeff Jones, Scott Hampton, and I can't even remember the other people because I didn't really care. All I saw was Jeff Jones, and I like signed up for the list. I was first name on the list. And when the day actually came, no one signed up for his class. No one even knew who he was.
Oh,
and I was sitting there.
gosh.
Yeah. So it was just me and him for like 7 hours. We just sat there all day painting and talking, So it was like a dream come true for me,
Do you know who his wife was?
No, because I think no, they might have been still married at that time. I can't
Do you know who it
remember.
was,
No, I don't.
It was Louise Simonson. Louise Simonson used to be married to Jeffrey Jones. Her name was Louise
Really?
Jones. Yeah. And so there's your connection. I said Walter was in the studio as well.
Studio.
So, yeah. So, this is early days. And you know what? That was a great time in comics because like, I think the comics weren't selling that well. And so publishers were just like letting these like really talented guys just do whatever they wanted, right? And so you have some of the best comic books ever produced, artistically speaking, of that time. And it still boggles my mind that even people like Frazetta were doing comic books. You know what I mean? Like it just boggles my mind.
I know.
Yeah, you have that level of talent doing comic books, and there's still great talent in the industry now. But I mean, these guys are legends. Jeffrey Jones and Barry Windsor Smith and Bernie Wrightson and Frank Frazetta and Jeffrey Jones. It's absolutely insane.
Well, just because you mentioned Frank Frazetta doing comics, just give me one quick second. I'm gonna grab something. You'll love this.
Okay. Well, just a little known fact while Michael's looking for stuff. I worked for Bridge Publication. I was doing illustration. And so they were hiring Frank Frazetta to do covers for them. So Battlefield.
You will dig this.
Okay, hold on. So Battlefield Earth was, and a lot of other covers done by Bridge Publications were done by Frank Frazetta. So what they did, so people that were working for Bridge Publication had like a Q&A with Frank Frazetta. They just had the illustrators that were working there at the time, and I was one of them. And we got to hang out with Frank Frazetta at a lunch and just ask him questions and hang out. And it was a blast, man. He said stuff like one of my favorite things. I'll just say this because I didn't want to derail from what you were doing, but he was asked like, why is like, do you remember like he'd have a painting and then there would just be one color that wouldn't be involved with the palette, but there'd just be one color that wouldn't match anything else, like a lime green or something like that, right? And it'd be like the spider's blood or whatever, or glowing eyes or something like that. And so they asked him, like, why did you do that? He goes, because it's just something unexpected. Just throw in a color that is completely unexpected and it'll work every time. So, you know, he would paint everything with like all the rules, and then there would be one thing that just didn't kind of match up with the rest of stuff. And so I still try to think about that when I'm doing artwork. Like even when I'm working with colorists, I go, maybe let's just try this one thing. And they're like, but that's not part of the palette. That's not what I'm doing. I'm like, just do it and see what happens, you know. But it has to be kind of a story point. It can't just be a throwaway. You know what I mean? It has to be some kind of story point that you want to accent. And that stuck with me to this day.
Well, that goes back to when I was talking about, you know, penciling and inking. It's like, I want it to be, you know, really of the moment, you know. It's like, I want to be in that moment and make the piece feel like it's part of that moment. And if I'm sitting here doing roughs and then I'm doing pencils over the roughs and then I'm doing inks over the pencils, it loses, in my opinion, it feels like it loses something. It loses that energy, you know. No, excuse me. And that's just something that just like Frazetta, it's like you got to throw something in there, you know. You got to make mistakes, you got to have that serendipity to it, you know. So, you know, I just love that sort of thing. And this is what I was going to grab here. I got these Frank Frazetta Ghost Riders here. Let's see that.
I can see the logo, but everything else is kind of pixelated. That's the old Ghost Rider on the back of the horseback, right?
Yeah, it's the horseback Frank Frazetta Ghost Riders.
Oh man, I wish I could see him better.
Yeah, sorry about that. You know, dude, it's probably also got this glare on there. How's that?
It's kind of pixelating though.
Yeah, so, it's on our Twitter. We got it up there. I'll send you a picture a little bit later. But I mean, that's issues number 2 and 3 of Ghost Rider, the original Ghost Rider. You know, the cowboy version there, and Frank Frazetta covers. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? You know.
So when you saw Frank Frazetta pencil something and then ink over it, that never inspired you to throw inks over your pencils?
No, what I'll do is I'll do rough penciling. Like I'll just get emotional, and then when I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing with this piece, then I just roll right into the inks. I mean, it may only be that I might have like 5 minutes into the drawing. I might have 20 minutes into the drawing, but then I start going in with the inks, you know. And I actually like to have multiple levels. I don't have anything I can grab here, but I like to do multiple levels. Like I'll have inks in the foreground, and then I'll have dark pencils in the middle ground, and then light pencils and washes in the background. You know, I just like to build my stuff like that. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I guess it's my traditional training, you know, like I had traditional Renaissance style classics training, art training. That's just what I had, and that's, you know, what I like to do. You know, it's just one of those things, you know.
It's a very painterly way of approaching the work, and I still have that sometimes where I just like to bring a brush and gray tones in, you know, but it's all ink. Yeah. But there's a black, and then there's, you know, you have your gray tones, and then you're working against your white. So you have your white, your black, and then you have your in-between tones. So sometimes I like that because, like I said, early on, I worked as like an illustrator. So I did paint, and I did do more of that kind of classic style of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I still do like that tangible brush, and then just kind of building things, you know, from the gray to the black, or from the white to the gray to the black, and stuff like that. So that's still there. But as an, you know, an artist for 35 years at Marvel and DC, you also learn that assembly line process pretty quickly. So you kind of learn that you're a part of the machine, and that this is, you kind of have to work over certain things. But I have done a lot of finish work. So I have that same experience that you're talking about. And it is a lot of fun where you'll have breakdowns. So you'll just have, you know, loose gestures. So you have your composition, you have your form, you have your proportion, you have your storytelling, but then you have to bring it together as an artist. So that is a lot of fun. And most of the time when I do finishes, I didn't pencil and tighten it up. I did it all in the inks. You know what I mean? So you're kind of drawing with the ink. Yeah. So do you have more of that energy?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where it is. You know, it's like, and it takes a while for someone to get to that point and to be comfortable with it. But when someone actually does do that, it's amazing, you know, because you can tell that there's energy in it. You know, they haven't traced over something. They're just putting it down and leaving it. That's one of the big things, you know, being trained in painting, you get trained to put down a mark and just leave it, you know, and it's really hard for people to do that, especially if you've been with pencils. You just erase, erase, erase. And it's like, I've always, you know, done training where it was like, you put it down and you leave it and that's it, you know, and that's something that I really, really enjoy.
I do that with
personally.
Inks. I do that with inks because it's permanent, but I realize that writing and penciling is a process. So there is a lot of trying and erasing, trial and erasing. And there's one thing that I did ask Frank Frazetta in that same conversation. And I asked him, how do you, when you do ink your own stuff, how do you work? And he said, pencil tight. This is opposite of what you're saying. He said, pencil tight, ink loose. So that has also always resonated with me. So like that stuff that I was showing you, the black and white cover, when I pencil, it is really, really tight, but I know how to ink and I know how to loosen things that are tight. You know what I mean? Like I know how to do that. So what I like to do is get all the decision making and make all the mistakes in the pencils. And then when I ink, I don't have to think about it. So I can be in the moment and I can just be expressive. So it's more about the movement. It's more about the energy at that point and less about the thought work. So usually when you ink or when you paint, you know, from your drawing, you kind of want to let that part go. What I call it is it's performance. So writing and penciling, that's a process. It's drawing, erasing, writing a paragraph, you know, changing the paragraph, rewrites, you know, it's a process. But when you're inking or when you're doing kind of finish, especially if you're using watercolors or something that dries quickly, it's more of a performance. So you're more in that moment. So it's more tangible, not tangible, but it's more natural. It's more of like in the moment. So it's a performance. So whatever it is, like you said, when you put the line down, that's the line. It stays. So it's more you're in the moment, you're throwing it down, because ink you can't really erase. I mean, you could white out an ink over it, but it's a mess and it's hard to do. So usually you don't make mistakes. You know what I mean? And if you do make mistakes, you learn how to roll with the mistake. You know what I mean? Like, because I ran a studio here for like 25 years. And so they go, well, what happens when you make this mistake? I said, that mistake is now the new line. So now you have to ink to that line. So everything else. So if it's like perspective and you inked it a little bit off, well, then each one of those lines now have to be with that new perspective line, because that ink line is your new go-to line. So you have to adhere to that line that you throw down, because the pencils are just a guide. They're not what you are beholden to. That just gets you to this process. So if you are a little bit too beholden to the pencils, you're probably not going to ink very well.
Well, see, that's another thing. Like, I always feel like, oh, I don't want to destroy these pencils, or you know, it's like I just feel constrained by them, and that's something that you got to get going in your head, where it's like, okay, you can destroy it, you can not even pay attention to it, you can erase it, you can paint over it. When I'm doing my inking, I'm just, like I said, I'm in it, I'm just putting down marks, I don't care. Then I go back over it with paint and I just paint out what I don't like, you know, and it becomes a bit of the drawing, kind of like a Jason Sean Alexander or Patrick Reynolds, you know, those types of people, you know, who are actually working today, they do that sort of style where, you know, it's they put down the inks and then they go back over and paint right over it.
We
I
talked
kind of
about
like
this
that.
artist. He did that mirror mask. Neil, no, he worked with Gaiman.
No, it's
Mike,
Dave McKean.
Dave McKean. Yeah, your stuff
Yeah.
kind of is eclectic. It reminds me kind of like Dave McKean. And I believe sometimes he would bring in some photo reference and then paint over or paint into it as well. You know, like even when Bill Sienkiewicz was in his heyday, you know, when he was doing some really inspired stuff, there was kind of that same approach where it was kind of painterly. What do they call it when you bring in photographs? It has a name.
Collage.
Yeah, you collage it a little bit, paint around it, paint into it. And then kind of you can even paste things three-dimensional into the artwork as well. I know that Dave McKean does that a lot. Some of that stuff is really three-dimensional, like it's thick. So he must be he must be taking photographs of the artwork, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen some of it. Some of it, it looks like it's 3D, but it's actually photographs that he's collaged in, so it gives it that 3D film, you know, form. You know, he was actually one of the early with Kodak to develop digital files that they would turn into slides that you could take, you know, or negatives. He would turn, you know, Kodak would actually turn them into negatives, and then he would print them so that, you know, he completed that whole process where he would paint and destroy, take a picture, bring it into Photoshop, do some things, and then send it off to Kodak and get negatives done of it, and then he would print it like it was a real photograph. So he was actually one of those pioneers that actually worked with Kodak to actually develop that whole process early on with Photoshop and stuff like that. And he is a huge influence for me. Actually, if you look at his book like Cages or Pictures That Click, that's actually a lot how Skits is going to be done. There's a few different art styles throughout the book, you know, where it creates a certain mood to it. So it's definitely something that I'm going to be doing with Skits. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I remember in the day when actually comics were pushing the envelope. You know what I mean? They were trying these different approaches. And one of my favorite things about Comicsgate is people like you, and there's other people that are trying new things and trying new approaches and kind of keeping or making comic books fresh again, making them interesting again. The mainstream seem like they're just so rigid into like just tunnel vision. They weren't always like that. You know, Marvel had the Epic line and DC had Vertigo and stuff like that. So there were people that were pushing it, but now you're seeing a lot more of that here at Comicsgate, and I applaud it because I'm not a snob that way. I like all of it. You know what I mean? Like I like something that's like Dave McKean, but at the same time, I like something that's like Jack Kirby, you know, or something, you know, that's just penciled with maybe some watercolor over it. Like I like all the above. And I remember people were asking me this a lot because, you know, they primarily think of me as an inker, and they would come to me and go, digital inks. You know, a lot of these guys are like they're doing high res scans of their pencils or they're digitally inking and all this stuff. They said, are you worried this is going to put you out of business? And I said, no. I said, what I do is like the top of what I do. Like I'm like top 5 guys, you know, for the last 35 years. So I'm not worried about that. And that voice is always going to be there. Like people are always going to want that, you know, that more traditional pencils with inks over it. Because for me, I've always argued, like when you think of a comic book, like when a Madison Avenue ad agency gets a job and they say, you need to do some like comic book art, they always do the same ingredients. It's inked artwork. That's one of the main ingredients always. It's not like photoshopped. It's not any of those things. It's pen and ink. So that's there. The panels, and the word balloons. These are like in the DNA of this art form, and it's never really going to go away, because most of those guys that are digitally doing it, they're still emulating that style. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's still there. The
Exactly.
language is still there. So I always say, it's like, if you're an artist and whatever the book you're doing, like it's skits or whatever, and that style fits that storytelling, it fits the story you want to tell, then all of these things are at your disposal. Wouldn't life be boring if you were only locked into this one way of doing it? That would be the kiss of death. So if somebody wants to express themselves with whatever approach, and it's good, that's always the bottom line, it's good. My favorite Jack Kirby line is, he was interviewed in Rolling Stone, and they were talking to him about like new music, because they thought they would derail the old man, right? It's like, let's ask this old man what he thinks about 60s rock and roll, right? And he said, as long as it's good, he goes, I don't care. He said, I can appreciate anything that is done well. He said, no matter what it is. And I always thought, like, that is how I am. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I could say, well, I don't like country western, right, as a music, as a genre or whatever. But then there could be a song that somebody does, and I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. You know what I mean? So then all of a sudden it breaks that rule. It's like, well, you know, maybe I don't hate it. Maybe I just haven't heard anything that's really good. You know what I mean? Or that
you haven't heard something that you actually like. You know, that's the big thing. Now, we got a question. We've had it up here for a while. Who are some of the artists Art would like to lunch with today?
Okay, I know this is going to sound ass kissy, but I'm really looking forward to the Comicsgate Comic Con that we're going to do. And I just want to hang out with all those Comicsgate guys. Like, I want to hang out with EVS. I want to hang out with Malin. One of the guys I really want to hang out with is like Cecil, because I'll tell you right now, I think if Cecil and I were locked in a room together, like, our sense of humor are just like this. Like, mine, I can do the G-rated, you know, humor stuff, like, what do they call it? Like the dad jokes and stuff like that. But I like some of that freaking, you know, far out stuff too, you know.
Well, the big thing is you can't really say any of that, you know, old type of comedy type stuff anymore, because you just get in trouble with anything that you would say. So, you know, that's why, you know, you got to do it in a room together, you know, by yourselves these days.
Yeah. But people in the chat always say, Michael, they say like, oh, dad jokes. Like, when I talk, they go like, oh, there's a dad joke for you.
yeah, but they, you know, they're young, and when we were coming up, it's like when you actually went to get a job, you had to go in, you know, you went in with a tie or some sort of button up, and you came in and you presented yourself to the best of your ability. Now, you know, I'm from the South, and when I started working, that's what I had to do. I had to come in, button up, pants, the whole 9 yards, and I had to, you know, look at myself. Now, when I first moved out west, I went to an interview at Todd McFarlane's place. You know, I worked for him for a few years, and I went for an interview, and I show up, I got my tie, I got my suit, you know, and the guys who were interviewing me, they're sitting there in flip-flops, shorts, and T-shirts, and I'm just like, what, you going to the beach? You going to the pool or something? I mean, it's like, what the heck is going on here, people?
We're here to do business. This is my business attire. Well,
I know they were laughing at me.
They used to say, like, the big difference in the 60s between Marvel and DC is, like, DC was very corporate, so they did have a dress code, so people wore suit and tie at DC Comics, because they had the uptown address too. But Marvel was in the publisher's row of like Manhattan, so they were just very casual. You know, they just wore whatever clothes. I mean, they weren't California casual, but they were more casual. They weren't like suit and tie kind of thing. So I think that's kind of the difference too, where there's more like the I guess there's the East-West thing, right? So like East Coast was always, in past tense, more formal, and West Coast was always more, you know, casual. But I think that comics now, I think the whole world is way more casual, you know?
Yeah. It is, man. It's so crazy. But Art, I would like to thank you for coming on here. We like to keep it, around an hour, and it's been great. And I could probably sit here and talk to you forever about stuff, but we got to keep it short for people. We also got some other stuff. I'll give you a second to kind of rattle off some stuff here at the final on the end here. But I just wanted to let people know that Come Get Scum. Tomorrow we got a review going up on Come Get Some. Wednesday we got Come Get Some Live with Rebel Comics and Gaming. Friday, we also got another review for Come Get Some. So let me do it right. Come Get Some. Also, Black Star tonight at is it 9 o'clock? 8:30, 8:15 over on Drew, aka Mr. E's site. They're going to be talking about horror. So, and she's the featured guest. She's going to be talking about her experiences in film, doing horror and stuff like that. So she's going to be over there. So go over there and check her out. Also, Art, what would you like to talk about on the way out here? You want me to share your stuff back up here?
Yeah, if you want, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. That's not my stuff.
Yeah.
That's your stuff.
Oh, look at there. Chrono Mechanics. Go get on.
So Chrono Mechanics is going strong. We're in demand. We're at 40,663, 555 or 50 backers. Yeah. So come by, check it out. Time Traveling Repairman. It's action adventure sci-fi comedy. We started off as a 48-page book, but thanks to you guys, we got it up to a 60-page book, and it's now in a graphic novel format. And we have a ton of stretch goals. So if you back a book right now, you'll get all of those stretch goals. And this is a little aside, a little fun thing that I'm doing with my site is I've been inking these Mike Mignola doodles. He's been posting these pop, like iconic pop culture characters. So this is H.R. Puffin stuff. So one of the things I've been doing is taking these, inking them up on my YouTube channel, and then raffling those off. So if you want to enter the raffle and possibly win this piece of artwork, back a book, a Chrono Mechanics book. Actually, it just looks like it went up. Back a book, and you'll be eligible. So if we get 5 backers by the end of the week, then we will do the raffle, and then one of you guys will get this H.R. Puffin stuff, penciled by Mike Mignola, inked by myself. And we'll do that Friday. But we need 5 backers. I think we got 1 today, so we really only need 4 backers. And I believe we can do it. It's just a fun little aside. We all have cabin fever, so Michael and I are trying to entertain the troops while everybody's, in lockdown. So yeah, we have that. And then we have the black and white pre-launch, which if you pre-launch, now you can get a free trading card drawn by the great, actually it's kind of concept art, so it's painted by the great Zach Bradley, and it's a 25-year commemorative trading card. You'll get that absolutely free with the backing, but you have to sign up now, and we will be launching this campaign at the end of the month. So if you didn't get, if you weren't involved with the first campaign, this is a second chance to get the volume 1 comic book. And we're also going to have all the stretch goals available too, but it's going to be at a premium. So you can get them, but you'll have to purchase them. So they won't be freebies. So a lot of people want the patches and the stickers and the bookmarks. So we'll make those accessible in this campaign as well. And we will have an early bird special, which if you sign up, you'll have access to that a lot quicker. So thank you so much, Michael, for letting me do this. And go back, go sign up for Skits as well, because you got a pre-launch as well, right?
Oh yeah, man, we got Skits the Sun book 1. It's coming at you really quick here. It is so soon. I just want to tell everybody, but I can't because my marketing person will just kick my butt if I tell everything. There's just so much stuff that I'm hiding and bubbling down within. It's just going to be awesome for everybody. But you got to get out there, get on that mailing list. You're going to have the best deal of a lifetime if you get on that mailing list. So go over there and get on that mailing list. And Art, I would like to thank you for stopping by with me, man. This has been awesome. Really do appreciate that, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Michael. I do appreciate it. And you're always a lot of fun. I like talking shop. I hope everybody else does as well, because like you said, I could do this all day with you. You know, like we could just talk our favorite artists, our approaches, all those
I
things.
know. Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's why we're all here, is because we love art, you know. Not only do I love you, Art, but I love art in general.
Well, very good, my friend. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, man. I'm gonna go ahead and play this video out so you can see what Skits is all about, and then we'll see you next time, everybody.